Hey, and welcome to this special hour-long episode of Capital City Sports. I'm Corey Burkhardt.
And I'm Madeline Green. Coming up on this week's show, we have a full review of the first half of the Gamecocks season on the gridiron. We'll look back at highlights from the first 8 games, as well as see where the offense and defense stands at the midway point.
We'll also check in to see how the women's soccer team did in their match against LSU.
Plus, more than 80 former Carolina baseball players were on hand for the annual alumni game. We have highlights from the Sarge later in the show.
But first, let's start off with a recap of the football team's season so far.
Once again, the Gamecocks came into the new season with high expectations. They had their chance to show what they were made of in a nationally televised season opener against NC State on Thursday.
The 2008 college football season kicked off at Williams-Brice Stadium with the Gamecocks taking on the NC State Wolfpack, and this one was ugly from the get-go. First drive of the game, and Tommy Beecher intercepted by Jamal Simmons, and the fans, they've seen this kind of quarterback play a few too many times for their tastes over the past few years. NC State, though, they didn't have it too easy either, as one drive later and a snap gets fumbled. Captain Munnerlyn falls on it, and USC seemingly back in business, but not so fast. Tommy Beecher intercepted again, this time Nate Irving making the play. But once again, the Gamecocks defense comes up big when it needs to. Next South Carolina drive, and things maybe starting to click a little bit more on the offense as Beecher finds LaCorn, who puts on a nifty move, gains 11 yards, but stop me if you've heard this one before. Beecher, interception. Nate Byers this time, Beecher's third on the night, and things are not going how he expected in his first collegiate start. NC State back on offense now, in scary moment here as Wolfpack QB Russell Wilson is hit hard and down for the count, and he would lay there for a while, eventually carted off, giving the thumbs up, so that's a good sign. NC State on that same drive now trying to be the first on the board, but the 46-yard field goal falling just a bit short, and they continue to sputter on offense as they turn right around on the very next drive and fumble the ball away. Eric Norwood falling on it, and that would end the half as Ryan Suckup, just before the clock hit 0, would hit the field goal to put the Gamecocks up 3-0 at the break. To the third quarter we go, fast forwarding a bit now. Carolina up 10-0 on a Mike Davis rushing touchdown. But for NC State, it was just more the same in the second half as Evans loses 10 on the sack by big Byron McKnight there. But Tommy Beecher still throwing picks like it's his job, and the only saving grace of this one is the huge hit that Mike Davis lays on DeAndre Morgan to end the play right there. And speaking of hits, on the very next drive, Beecher, he's going to go back to his feet here, pick up a few yards, but after the tackle, he's seeing stars for a little bit. Can't tell if it was his head or his shoulder. It seems like his shoulder, but he was woozy, and that would be it for him in the game as Suckup would finish the drive with another field goal. And it's now 13-0 Carolina, but the Wolfpack bound and determined to keep giving USC more chances as the snap goes way high, 23-yard loss, and once again the Gamecocks take over, and that brings Chris Smelly into the game in place of Beecher, and he makes the most of it right away with a 20-yard touchdown to Dion LaCorn, first passing TD of the game, which would give the Gamecocks all the confidence they needed. Following a Stony Woodson interception, Mike Davis ripping off a 50-yard run, the O-line starting to open up some bigger holes against the tired NC State defense, and that play would set up Taylor Rank for this, his first career touchdown, bouncing off of tacklers, and USC starting to pull away, and they weren't done yet. Later on in the same quarter, Smelly again, this time 13 yards to the big tight end Jared Cook, and that's the way it would stay, folks, as Carolina takes it 34-0 over the Wolfpack to open their season. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Now sitting at 1-0 on the season, Carolina traveled to conference foe Vanderbilt for their second Thursday night clash in a row. Brian Walker was in Nashville, and he has the highlights from the game.
A win over NC State put the Gamecocks into the top 25, but would it last? To Nashville we go as USC takes on Vanderbilt, 1 year removed from the shocking loss to the Commodores in Columbia. And for a short time, things were looking good for the guys in Garnet as the Vandy ground game struggled to get going, but it was more the same from the inept offense for the Cox, as this incompletion from Chris Smelly sums up his night perfectly. But offense wasn't all that was bad this night. Special teams looking to get in on the action too, as DJ Moore returns the Gamecock punt 18 yards, and Vandy looking to be in business, but Darian Stewart didn't get that memo as he drops the hammer on poor Gaston Miller, and USC comes up with the fumble inside the red zone. Take another look. Stewart, no respect for helpless ball carriers, but could Smelly make the most of the turnover? Not at first, as Greg Billinger sends him spinning, but one play later, beautiful strike to Kenny McKinley, and the Gamecocks are on the board first. Next drive for Vandy goes nowhere, as the Gamecock run D looking strong so far. Smelly now finding Jared Cook for 22, a big night for the big tight end. Cook finished with 111 yards on 8 catches, but it wouldn't be a Carolina offense without some of that. And if you're keeping score at home, that's interception number 1 on the night. A tough break with the tipped ball there, but a pick nonetheless, and Vandy takes over, but goes 4 and out. Skipping ahead, another Vandy drive because the Gamecocks offense going nowhere fast, and that's Eric Norwood doing work with the sack, add another to his career total. But Smelly is putrid tonight, folks, and that's Darwin Speed going 40 yards the other way before introducing himself to the field goal net. A small defensive victory for USC afterwards, though, as they stuff Chris Nixon on the goal line and the Commodores settle for the field goal. Ensuing kickoff, and Chris Culver will take off and not stop until he's at midfield. We haven't seen any great kick returning in some years here, so it's nice of Culver to go ahead and break that tradition a little bit. Excellent field position, doesn't lead to any TDs though, but Ryan Suckup would put the 41-yarder through, and it's halftime and Carolina is up 10-3. Third quarter now, and Vandy punting, and here's what we call an unfortunate turn of events. The ball hits off a Gamecock player, and Vandy recovers, and a good team will capitalize. And on this night, Vandy was as good as they needed to be, as the very next play, Nixon up top, Brandon Barden, 31 yards, and we are tied. Smelly later on finding Cook again and puts USC in field goal position, but not so fast, my friends. Suckup's kick is blocked, and again, a costly turnover, as again, Vandy will capitalize. Sean Walker on the reverse, and he's going to go 29 yards, and that sets up Nixon for the goal line QB sneak, and the Gamecocks fans are shocked again. A few plays later, Suckup setting up for the field goal, again trying to stop the bleeding on offense, and from 48 it goes wide. And tell me if you see a pattern here. Vandy is in the zone, and with the ball back, Jared Hawkins just makes people miss. It's 24-10 Commodores, and the Gamecocks' hopes are quickly falling back to earth. Is there any last-minute magic in them? A little, but not enough, as Smelly finds Freddie Brown for the TD, but too little, too late. The turnovers were too costly, and Vandy yet again shocks the ranked Gamecocks and takes this one. Final score, Vanderbilt 24, Carolina 17. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Coming up after the break, we'll continue our mid-season football review, and we'll also take a closer look at how the offense has played so far this year. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Coming into the season, Carolina fans were hoping to finally see the high-flying offense that Steve Spurrier has been known for. So far, though, the results have been less than satisfying. Jared Munch takes a closer look at the current state of the Gamecocks offense.
Looking to forget last season's disappointing finish, the 2008 football season started with enthusiasm and optimism. It also began with Steve Spurrier announcing a new starting quarterback.
Tommy's our quarterback. I think everybody realizes he gives us the best shot.
In his first career start, Beecher went 12 for 22 with 4 interceptions before being replaced by Chris Smelly, and the Carolina quarterback carousel began.
Chris Smelly did come in, play very well. We'll have to watch the tape, analyze it, just see what in the world happened with Tommy. We'll evaluate that and make a decision on who starts next week.
Chris Smelly started the next 5 games before stumbling hard when the Gamecocks went to Lexington to face Kentucky, going only 9 for 23 with 2 interceptions and a fumble lost.
We played pretty lousy offensively. Chris just couldn't hit anybody. I don't know how else to say it. He was trying to hit him, but his ball was just a little off.
Redshirt freshman quarterback Steven Garcia came in the third quarter of the Kentucky game to lead the Gamecocks to a come-from-behind win over the Wildcats and earn him a starting job for the LSU game.
So Stephen, I think, surprised us all. He threw the ball where guys could catch it, threw a very catchable pass, threw it on time, threw it in the openings of the defense. Looked pretty good for first meaningful playing time ever.
All things considered, in Steven Garcia's first career start against 13th-ranked LSU, he did all right, passing for 215 yards and a touchdown, as well as running for another 64. But after the offense stalled in the second half, coming up scoreless, Steve Spurrier had no choice but to question his decision.
Tried to put it in the hands of a freshman quarterback that starting his first game ever, and probably wasn't a good idea, but we thought that gave us our best chance to move the ball, to let him go back, run around, throw.
The quarterback controversy is not the only thing yet to be resolved in Carolina. There's a platoon of running backs in Eric Baker, Bobby Wallace, Brian Maddox, and Mike Davis, but all year, none of them have been able to find a way to carry the rock successfully. After the LSU game, Coach Spurrier let his feelings be known on the subject.
We got to run the ball like they do. If we're going to be a big-time team, we can't play like we're trying to play tonight. We got to run the ball.
A bright spot for the Gamecocks this year has been redshirt freshman wide receiver Jason Barnes, who had a breakout game against the Kentucky Wildcats, getting 4 receptions for 88 yards, including this beauty late in the fourth quarter for 38. But don't call him the go-to receiver yet. He still reserves that title for another receiver.
I don't really look at myself as a go-to guy. I just look at myself as going out there and make plays whenever my number called. Kenny McKinley still the go-to guy.
Speaking of Kenny McKinley, earlier this season he put his name in South Carolina record books, passing Sterling Sharp to become USC's all-time receptions leader.
I mean, it's good to get that behind me now, though. It still ain't really sunk in yet. Probably when I go home and just sit around and think about it, that's when it probably sink in. But it's a dream come true, and it's passed by now, so I get on the rest of the season.
8 games into the season, the Gamecocks are 5-3, but a few things are yet to be determined. For one, can Steven Garcia lead the Gamecocks to a strong finish? Also, when or if will the Gamecocks' running game get going? In the last month of the season, let's hope we get some of those answers. Jared Munch, Capital City Sports.
Coming off a close loss to Vanderbilt, the Gamecocks returned home to take on number 2 Georgia Bulldogs. Let's send it over to Williams-Brice Stadium for more.
1 year ago, USC walked into Athens and came out with a shocking win over the Georgia Bulldogs. Could they make it 2 in a row? The students were ready, and they were treated to a defensive battle all day long. First Gamecock drive ending in a punt, and Georgia's main weapon, Knowshon Moreno, already starts doing freakish athletic things, returning at 32 yards. But Bulldogs QB Matthew Stafford not so nimble as he gets dropped by big Laddie Ajiboye, the boy in the middle. Go ahead, do a dance. You earned it, big fella. But on the USC side of the ball, Mike Davis goes 3 yards backwards, and that was the theme of the day for the rushing attack. Now here's a sight Gamecock fans have been clamoring for. Steven Garcia in his first collegiate play, and he goes all Tim Tebow on us to the tune of 6 yards, but it's not enough, and the Gamecocks punt once again. Towards the end of the first now, and Matthew Stafford under pressure throws high, but a bit short, and Chris Culver is there to steal it away. He'll treat it like a kick return and get a solid few yards, but it's all for nothing. As pass interference was called on USC, Bulldogs keep the drive alive and decide you can't intercept what you don't throw. So they hand it to Moreno, who picks up 11, puts the Dogs in field goal position, and those are the first points of the game. It's 3-0 Georgia. But the Gamecocks think field goals are un-American. It's touchdown or bust on the next drive, and Chris Smelly delivers with a strike 34 yards down the sideline to Mo Brown, and it's now 7-3 Carolina. Georgia with the ball now, and Stafford not known for his wheels, but he does work here. Going 17 on the ground. Captain Munnerlyn not happy with that, so he takes back 6 with the sack on the next play. Ball is fumbled, but Georgia falls on it, and this was as clutch for the Dogs as it gets. 3rd and 21, Stafford goes deep for the freshman A.J. Green, and he makes it look easy, 39 yards and a first down, but time is a factor. The drive already at the 8-minute mark, and Stafford is stuffed on 3rd down, so Georgia settles for the field goal, and at halftime, USC is up by 1. Carolina now in the second half, and Smelly looking deep for Brown, almost intercepted, but he dodges a bullet. Gamecocks still have to punt, though. Moreno, mostly quiet on the day, squeezes through for just 5, but once again, It's Stafford showing the running prowess, and this one was big as he springs free for 30 before Captain Munnerlyn chases him down. And that would be the big gain the Bulldogs needed, because on the very next play, Moreno, showing his strength, just burst through tacklers and put 6 on the board. 2-point conversion is also good, and just like that, Carolina finds themselves down 7. Later in the third, Smelly looking to make something happen, but he just gets the entire Georgia O-line all up in his grill, and he goes down. But Munnerlyn, not to be outdone, gets his second sack of the game, sending Stafford 8 yards in the wrong direction. Carolina with the ball back again, and Garcia trying to move the chains. Just a bit too much mustard on this one for Freddie Brown to handle. Chris Smelly has it easier, though, because Jared Cook, he's 6'7". He can do things like that, laying out to pick up 25. But the turning point of the whole game right here. Pass interference puts the ball on the 2, and Mike Davis, trying to stretch it out on second down, fumbles into the end zone for a touchback to Georgia, and he's got to be feeling about 3 inches tall right now. But the Gamecock D wasn't about to quit as Jasper Brinkley puts down Stafford for the 4th Carolina sack of the game, and Carolina with another chance to tie things up. Smelly goes 34 yards to Cook, but a few incompletions brings up 4th down, and a conversion attempt fails horribly as CeCe Whitlock is nowhere near the throw. And yet the Gamecocks continue to fight as Moreno gets nothing and Georgia punts again. So with less than 2 minutes remaining, could Chris Smelly be the hero and put it into overtime? Things looking good as he goes 30 yards to Mo Brown, and then 16 more to the freshman Eric Baker, and the fans can almost smell the last-minute magic in the works, but Smelly threw only 1 pick all game, and this would be it. Just a bit too high to Jared Cook, and Rashad Jones is there for it. And with about 10 seconds left, that's how it would end. A good effort, but the Gamecocks fall to Georgia 14-7, and they're now just 1-2 on the year. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Facing an early season collapse in Week 4, the Gamecocks stepped out of conference play to host Division I AA opponent Wofford. Let's send it back over to Williams-Brice Stadium for more.
Carolina Gamecocks taking on 1AA Wofford, and the Terriers, they are no walk in the park. Remember, they almost beat USC in Columbia 2 years ago. Steve Spurrier hoping this game would be a chance to get the sputtering offense back on track. Here's a hint, it wasn't. Don't believe me? See for yourself. Second play of the game, probably not how it was drawn up in the huddle. Smelly with the interception, and now an earlier than expected chance to see that tricky wishbone offense, which features a lot of this. QB Ben Widmeyer making people miss for 11, but he's not afraid to let it fly either as he finds Steve DeVete for 9 more. But the Gamecocks D would hold and force a field goal attempt, and kicker Patrick Mugen wide right, and Carolina dodges an early bullet. Gamecocks with the ball now, and finally some new faces being seen on the field. First, the sophomore Brian Maddox surging ahead for 9, and then Smelly back to the air, 13 more to Joe Hills, and you know he's happy to finally get his chance to shine. But Smelly then turning it into a one-man show. He hits the afterburners, keeps the drive going with 12 on the ground before being forced out. The end zone would remain out of reach, though, as Ryan Suckup puts it through from 22 out to give Carolina the early lead. It would be short-lived, however, as on the next drive, Wofford's offensive trickeration catches the Gamecocks napping. That's Widmeyer on the keeper, and just like that, it's 7-3 Wofford. Who'da thunk it? Carolina needs an answer, and they'd get one in a hurry as Mike Davis rips off 12 yards before Smelly goes airborne and finds Mo Brown for 20 more, all of which would set up Maddox for his first collegiate touchdown. Congrats, kid, and the Gamecocks are back on top. After Wofford goes 4 and out, though, Smelly gets dropped behind the line, and so does the football, recovered by Wofford. Could have been devastating, but the defense, as always, stays strong, and Wofford would have to punt. With the first half winding down, another fresh face, Eric Baker barreling over defenders for 9 of his 49 on the day, and then Smelly to one of his favorite targets. Jared Cook, and Carolina seems to be driving with no problems, but as the half ran out, so did the luck for Smelly. This pick, not completely his fault, as Wofford is there for the tip drill. Second half didn't start so well either, as Wofford came out and immediately went to the rare deep pass, and it was a good one as Widmeyer connects with Justice Jocelyn for 52 yards. But again, the Terriers can only manage a field goal, and we are tied at 10. Mike Davis led the team with 51 receiving yards for the game, and this is why. Taking the dump passes all day from Smelly and turning nothing into something. This next play, however, summed up the offensive struggles perfectly. The pass was more or less there, but Freddie Brown decided if no one would defend him, he'd just fall down himself. Smelly unfazed, though, and he just goes back to the increasingly reliable Jared Cook for 17 before Baker gives another impressive run, breaking through for 18 more, and that would bring us to the fourth quarter. After a suck-up field goal made it 16-10 Carolina, it was all rushing for the Terriers as this short run set up yet another field goal and put them back within 3. Ensuing Gamecock drive, and after a few short passes, Davis would go for 11, setting up this pass from Smelly to Dion LaCorn, and that's going to be the dagger for the Terriers because they wouldn't get another point, and Carolina would escape narrowly once again with the 23-13 victory. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
We're only halfway through our hour-long special here on Capital City Sports. Coming up, we continue our football highlights and pay a final visit to Sarge Frye Field for the alumni baseball game. Don't change that channel.
After getting back to a 500 record after beating Wofford, the Gamecocks stayed out of conference as they hosted UAB at Williams-Brice Stadium. Let's send it back over to Brian Walker for the highlights.
South Carolina hosting Alabama Birmingham in their final non-conference game before beginning the heart of the SEC schedule, and all the focus on this night would be that man, number 5, the heralded quarterback Stephen Garcia, expected to see a lot of play time, and he would, but first it was Chris Smelly getting the start, and things almost great from the get-go as he tries the deep ball and it falls just short of Joe Hills and the certain touchdown. Same drive, same problems. This time the end zone just a bit too much for Freddie Brown to handle, and the Gamecocks settle for the early 3 as Suckup is good on the 44-yarder. Next Carolina drive, and finally the moment fans were waiting for, Stephen Garcia in behind center, and his first pass is complete for a short gain to Hills. But the excitement is short-lived as Eric Baker takes the handoff and Bryant Turner puts his helmet right on it. Ball was loose and UAB recovers, already in the end zone, and they go straight for the jugular with the Joe Webb pass to the end zone. But take a look at Darian Stewart on the coverage, just denying every aspect of that pass, and the Blazers would eventually go for the field goal. We're tied at 3 early. Garcia back on the field, and he'd show a little of everything, good and bad, on this drive, starting with the 15-yarder to Jason Barnes. Next play, he'd try a little deeper and find Joe Hills, covered by everyone but the coaches. Pass interference, and the drive stays alive. Very next play, Garcia trying deep again. This time it's underthrown and picked, but offsides negates it. Another costly penalty, and Garcia dodges a bullet. And in case you didn't hear, the kid can run too. Here he breaks off 9 of his team high, 86 on the night, and that would be the perfect setup for this. His first career TD pass to Brian Maddox out of the backfield, walking it in and making it look easy. The Gamecocks have a 7-point lead. Second quarter now, and Garcia with the touch pass, finding Barnes for 22, and USC once again threatening in the red zone. Next play, nothing happening downfield, so Garcia keeps it and finds the sidelines, but he gets shellacked while doing so. He would be okay, but now it's 4th and goal from the 1. They opt to go for it, and in hindsight, maybe not the smartest idea because Maddox is straight denied, and the Blazers take over on downs. They wouldn't get further than that, though, before having to punt. And on the ensuing return, take a look at Captain Munnerlyn making people look foolish as he racks up 35, and USC is in business. They waste no time either as Garcia takes a snap and gets going in a hurry. 5 yards and a few words for the helpless defender, and it's now 17-3. UAB desperately searching for an answer, and they find some hope with Webb's 20-yard pass, but once again the Carolina defense will hold them to a field goal. Second half, and a chance now for Carolina to blow it wide open, and with Bobby Wallace ripping off 18 just like that, things are looking good. But like the Blazers, it's all field goals at the moment, and Suckup puts it through from 48. UAB would punt, and this time it would be Baker putting the moves on people for a gain of 16 more. Later in the drive, though, it's 3rd and long, and Garcia, without a lot of options, chucks up a prayer and winds up finding the wrong team altogether. But the Blazers, they're a nice bunch of guys, and to make it up to Carolina, they turn around and give it right back as Justin Brooks drops the rock. Cliff Matthews falls on it. Now it's Bobby Wallace again, shedding tackles like a madman for 21 yards. And with Garcia's night over, it's back to Smelly, who promptly finds Barnes in the end zone. Piece of cake, but wait. Offensive pass interference, it's called back, and that's a tough break, especially since it would lead to this Smelly intercepted by Brand Carlisle, who would probably be happier if his offense wasn't so afraid of the ball at this point in time, because 2 plays later, it's Webb who's picked off. Stoney Woodson somehow comes away with it out of nowhere. And now it's Beecher's turn behind center, and he enjoys it none too much as he gets a face full of defense and a loss of 4 to go with it. Gamecocks will get it back again, though, as Webb grows increasingly tired of throwing to his own team. This time around, it's Shaq Wilson with the pick and a short return afterwards, and now it's back to Smelly, who either overthrows Joe Hills or underthrows the parking lot. Either way, it's not pretty, but Ryan Suckup there to clean up the mess with 3 more. Time winding down on the Blazers, and they do manage to find one last bit of offense with a deep completion, followed by a 1-yard TD, but it's garbage points by now, and the Gamecocks come away with the 26-13 victory. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
After the win against UAB, Carolina hit the road to take on Ole Miss. Let's send it down to Oxford for the highlights.
Carolina in Oxford taking on the Ole Miss Rebels, and from the beginning it didn't look like things would be good for the boys in Garnet as Ole Miss was moving the ball at will. QB Jevin Sneed picking up 5 before fumbling, but it goes out of bounds and stays with Ole Miss. Next play, and this is where Ole Miss can be so dangerous, running that tricky wild Rebel formation with the direct snap, Dexter McCluster, and he does exactly what he's supposed to. 1st and goal, and from there back to the standard handoff, and that's Cordera Eason making it look simple against a confused-looking Carolina defense. But on offense, the Gamecocks were clicking all day, Davis picking up 12 of his 73 yards, but the real story was Chris Smelly putting on a passing clinic. The sideline pass to his favorite new target, Jason Barnes, and there'd be plenty more from him to come. The drive would stall, however, but Suckup, he'd be good from 48 out for 3. The Carolina D, though, still with no answer to the Rebels' offense as Sneed finds McCluster up the middle for a huge gain. Next play, though, he goes to McCluster one too many times, and this time, Darian Stewart brings out the boomstick to limit the gain. It's all for nothing, though, as a few plays later, and guess who? McCluster again, this time on the ground, and suddenly, the Gamecocks are in a 14-3 hole early on. But Smelly was on his game today, and with a little help from Jared Cook, who almost takes it to the house, but those corners are speedy in Mississippi, and he goes down 63 yards later to end the first quarter. 3 plays later, and the Gamecocks finally ready for some points as Smelly goes to the back of the end zone, and Barnes gets plain flattened, but somehow holds on, and the touchdown is good. Ensuing Rebels drive, and a huge turning point as Sneed tries to scramble but drops the rock, and big Nathan Pepper right there for the scoop and score. He may not be fast, but it gets the job done, and Carolina has a 14-point swing in less than 2 minutes. Ole Miss refused to go away, though, as Shea Hodge hurdles one defender and turns upfield for 24, and that would set up another easy 6 as the Gamecocks bite on the bootleg, and Brandon Bolden has open field for days, blown coverage, and the Rebels are back on top by 4. After another stalled Gamecocks drive, Suckup, 38 out, goes right by a mile, and that takes us to halftime. Third quarter starts out positive for the Cocks as Barnes keeps making plays all over the field, but Smelly would have one mistake all day, and this was it. Flushed out of the pocket, he just throws it out there, and it's picked off easily. But Ole Miss had turnover issues of their own. This time it's McCluster on the receiving end of a big hit, and he loses the ball, and Emmanuel Cook is off to the races. Now, he doesn't win that race, but he gets it across midfield nonetheless, and Carolina's back in business. Mike Davis would find a nice gap to get through and put the Gamecocks into the red zone, and from there, it was all Smelly and Barnes, again with a beautiful catch along the sideline. The USCD would force a 3-and-out, so once again, Carolina a chance to open things up a bit, and Davis would respond in kind with a big gain. After that, it was Kenny McKinley finally back from his injury and going all the way to the 3-yard line. But did Smelly have one more in him? Absolutely. This one not as pretty, but he buys his time and eventually finds Joe Hills at the back of the end zone. Gamecocks by 10. Now it's up to the defense to hold the Rebels. They didn't get the memo right away as Mike Wallace breaks away down the sideline. Next play, Sneed fires incomplete, but the real play here is Akeem Auguste doing his best impersonation of a human wrecking ball right into the poor receiver. The Rebels will be forced to go the safe route and kick the field goal, though, putting them within 7. Huge play now, and the Gamecocks going for it on 4th and 1 to essentially end the game, but the handoff is stuffed, and the Rebels will get one more shot. They would do nothing with it, however, and Carlos Thomas decided he was ready to go on home and picks off the pass from Snead, and the Gamecocks will leave Mississippi with a nail-biter of a win, 31-24. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
We'll have more from the football team in a minute, but first, over 80 former Carolina baseball players were on hand Saturday for the alumni game. Corey has all the highlights.
Over the weekend, the USC baseball team welcomed back some of its former players for the alumni game. USC coach Ray Tanner said players old and young have a special connection from spending their college years playing on the diamond.
It doesn't matter when you played or how old you are. There's a bond between former players and baseball players in general. It's a special fraternity, so it's exciting to have them here. A lot of war stories and a lot of fun.
But exactly what kind of stories did the former players spend the weekend talking about?
All of them, from drinking, partying, and from hitting people off the shin.
One thing that was evident during Saturday's game, the players were still fast enough to turn the double play and still had the guts to throw high and inside. Keith Lewis, who popped out in the 3rd inning, said that it felt good for the old guys to show the young guys they still have it.
Oh, it felt great. It felt real good. I'm one of the old guys, so it felt real good. We enjoyed it, though. But see the young guys come out and bond with the older guys, it keeps the tradition going here.
Over 80 former coaches and players were on hand at the alumni game to celebrate the end of Sarge Fry Field, but also to welcome the new baseball stadium, which is set to open in the spring. But many fans will still miss their memories from the Sarge.
It really pains me. And I'm standing here thinking, well, this is an end of an era.
But as one era in USC baseball history ends, another is ready to begin. Corey Burkhardt, Carolina News. Coming up next, we'll finish our mid-season look back at the football season. And we'll also head to Stone Stadium to see how the women's soccer team did against LSU. Don't go away. More Capital City Sports is coming up after the break. The Gamecocks' road win at Ole Miss was a much-needed confidence booster as the boys hit the road the following week to take on division rival Kentucky. Let's send it over to Lexington for more.
No time for the Gamecocks to celebrate the win over Ole Miss as they travel to Lexington to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. This one all about defense from the get-go as Kentucky went nowhere to start the game, but the ensuing punt was just a small sign of the strange things to come as Captain Munnerlyn gets the ball stripped, but he falls on it and it's crisis averted. A much bigger crisis brewing for Chris Smelly, though. After his excellent performance at Ole Miss, he was just off, missing badly to Mo Brown on the deep ball. And Ryan Suckup had a nightmare of a day. His first field goal attempt from 50 yards goes wide right, but again Kentucky would punt and Smelly still all over the place, missing Bobby Wallace on the easy pass to the sideline. And then a bizarre play here as the pass seems complete, but Trevard Lindley just straight snatches it and he's gone. Pick 6, and the Cats are up just like that. Following kickoff, though, it's Carolina's turn to answer. Munnerlyn in on kickoff duty in place of Chris Culver, and he gets gone all the way to the 16 before being caught by the kicker of all people. No matter, though, because the very next play, Smelly's going to put it right where McKinley would like it for the touchdown, and we are all tied up at 7. Gamecocks D still playing lights out on the next drive as Hartline's pass goes just a bit high, and Culver is there for the tip drill. 10 yards on the return, and USC back in business, but Kentucky's defense is no slouch either, and Smelly on the ensuing drive just a little too far to the sideline, and Shamari Moore takes it back easily for the Wildcats. Again, Kentucky punts, but on the very first play of the next drive, Smelly with the keeper just gets it knocked away. Kentucky falls on it already in the red zone. They'd have to try for a field goal, though, and Munnerlyn would continue his special teams domination. Jordan Lindsay puts a hand on it, and Captain hits the afterburners the second he gets the ball. No chance for the kicker to catch him this time, and it's Gamecocks up by 7. Kentucky now trying to get anything going on offense, and instead Randall Cobb just gets a face full of Emmanuel Cook. They would punt once again, and you know Munnerlyn, he can't be Superman every play today. This time it goes right through his hands, but Addison Williams eventually falls on it. Next pass to McKinley, and this one would get him the USC all-time receptions record, but then it goes horribly wrong as he coughs it up, and Kentucky once again falls on the fumble, and this time they would not hesitate to capitalize. After a couple passing plays, Tony Dixon with the 2-yard rush, and we are all tied up at 7. Just before halftime now in Kentucky, lining up for a 50-yard field goal, and this one would be good from about 60, so the Cats go into the break up by 3. Coming out, Kentucky tries and fails a surprise onside kick, but for the Gamecocks, excellent field position, no use is Smelly, still overthrowing targets, and Succop's day just gets even longer, this time wide left from 51 out. Luckily for them, Kentucky decided to start having kicking troubles of their own, as their drive would end in a field goal attempt from 45, and that too would go wide left. From there, it was over for Smelly, all Steven Garcia, as he goes 8 yards on the ground first play. And just in case the Wildcats didn't get the hint about his feet, this time he goes back for more, 25 down the sideline. Eventually, he would feel some pressure, though. On 3rd and long, he avoids the sack, scrambles a bit, and then finds Mike Davis wide open, but it's not enough for a first down, so Succop comes out to try from 40, and wouldn't you know it, wide left. After a Kentucky 3-and-out, though, the Cox are back in field goal range, and this time, Succop is right on the money from 42, and once again, it's tied up. Wildcats would have only 56 yards in the second half, so no surprise the Gamecocks again get the ball, and Jason Barnes, mostly silent until now, 38 yards into the red zone. And from there, it's a bit of trickery as USC pulls out the unbalanced O-line formation, and Wes Saunders is left wide open for the easy touchdown pass from Garcia. Kentucky would have one final chance, but their offense was completely inept by this point, and Culliver would grab it, his second pick of the day, to seal it up. And for the second week in a row, the Gamecocks go on the road and win a close one. They move to 5-2 with the 24-17 win. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Fresh off their 4th straight victory, the Gamecocks returned home last Saturday to take on the defending national champs, LSU. Freshman quarterback Steven Garcia got his first start. How did he do? Let's send it back over to Williams-Brice Stadium for more.
There's the fastest man in the country, Trendon Holiday, jamming a little bit as his 13th-ranked Tigers prepare to take on Steven Garcia and the Carolina Gamecocks here at Williams-Brice Stadium. We are about ready to get started for you.
Y'all ready, baby? LSU and the Gamecocks about to get it done. Let's get it.
You said it, Mike, man. The fans are jacked up for this one as you hear Thunderstruck. And here comes Steven Garcia, the heralded quarterback, leading his team to his first start. Now let's go ahead to first quarter action. LSU wouldn't do anything on their first drive, being forced to punt. Captain Munnerlyn back deep to receive, fields the ball off the bounce, gets a nice little return, making people miss, getting all the way down near midfield, giving Steven Garcia some great field position. He drops back, doesn't see anything through the air, runs for 12 yards, picks up the first down, and man, this guy's excited, playing with a lot of intensity in his first start, but the excitement would be short-lived because here starts the woes on the offensive line. Steven Garcia getting his first sack of the game, showing some frustration right there. LSU gets the ball back, Jarrett Lee wasting no time finding his first target of the game, and Brandon LaFell picking up the first down, and now LSU is in business. Trendon Holiday gets the ball here on the end around. Now, like I said, he's the fastest man in the country, so he makes some people miss, takes it 10 yards down the field, but the drive would stall. Here's Colt David. No fake field goal there. It is good from 48 yards out. The Gamecocks get the ball back. Garcia buying some time, just like he can do, finding Kenny McKinley, who holds on amazingly for an 18-yard game, but the Gamecocks would have some trouble establishing the running game. Here's Eric Baker with a nice little run here, but he's going to get popped with helmet to helmet and fumble the football. He would not return. LSU returns this one back to about the 45-yard line, and the Gamecocks got to wait a little bit longer to put points on the board. Baker's fumble would not amount to any points for LSU. Garcia back on the field, finding himself a little rhythm on the catch and run. That's good for 31 yards, thanks to Jared Cook on that nice run. On the very next play, Garcia would find what I think is his favorite target, Jason Barnes, for 13 yards, and that would set up another Garcia drops back to pass, doesn't find anything, so he makes something happen with his feet, and the kid is fast, gaining 17 yards and the first on that run, and then he finds Derek Cook again, but they cannot put the ball in the end zone, so the Gamecocks, well, they would settle for 3 as they have done so many times this year. But there's a happy kid for you right there, at least till LSU gets the ball back. Jarrett Lee is going to find Keelan Williams right here, and he dodges, ducks, dips, dives, and dodges his way for 15 yards, and that sets up a Charles Scott touchdown. Tigers go up 10-3. On the ensuing possession, though, Garcia with the football, buying himself some time, heaving up a prayer, but that prayer is answered by Kenny McKinley. What a big-time player he was this game. And that sets up this 26-yard touchdown pass to the big tight end, Wesley Saunders. Looks like he's running in his own backyard. There's just some grass. Gamecocks tie the score.
Let's go, baby. Follow ball.
Well, I don't know if John McCain endorses that message, but anyway, Jarrett Lee with the ball back right here, and he finds, he doesn't find anybody. He gets intercepted by Carlos Thomas, and he's going to tiptoe it down the sidelines, but he steps out at the 8-yard line. That's okay. Mike Davis would punch it in from the 1. The Gamecocks go up at halftime 17-10, but the demise of the Gamecocks is coming, and here we go. Andrew Hatch to Richard Dixon for the touchdown. That ties the game back up at 17, and Charles Scott, he's going to put the game out of the Gamecocks' reach, 24-17. Gamecocks with one last chance. Garcia is intercepted. LSU puts the game away 24-17. Justin Fabiano, Capital City Sports.
When the Gamecocks couldn't get past LSU on the football field, they got another chance when the women's soccer team faced the Tigers at home Thursday night. Mike Wadsworth has all the highlights.
Women's soccer team would look to end their 2-game losing streak on Thursday versus LSU, and they'd get their first chance here in the 37th minute off this header from Kayla Grimsley to Natalie Aaron, but she'd kick it right to Mo Isom. She would be a force for the LSU defense. Later in the 41st minute, Grimsley would get a one-on-one opportunity, but a brilliant save by Isom again. This game would be 0-0 at the half. Now on to the second half. Lindsay Small with another great shot, but it's off the post. A scary moment, Mo Isom hitting her head on the post. She would eventually get up, and this game would go 0-0 at the end of regulation. In the first overtime, with just 10 seconds left, a gift for Carolina from the LSU defense, but Mo Isom again comes up big. Either team would score in the second overtime, and this one would end 0-0. Head coach Shelly Smith commenting after the match.
We got to make sure, again, we finish those opportunities. I think that's been the frustration coming off last weekend. We had several opportunities, especially against Alabama, and we didn't put it away. And tonight, the fact that we're setting up so many good chances, it's going to come. It's going to fall.
It came for Carolina on Sunday as they would win 3-1 over Arkansas, clinching a spot in the SEC tournament. Mike Wadsworth, Capital City Sports.
All right, well, that'll do it for us this week here at Capital City Sports. Be sure to check us out online at capitalcitysports.blip.tv to check out all of our exclusive online content.
We're also available on iTunes. Just search Capital City Sports.
And we're back next week at 8 for a brand new episode of Capital City Sports. Until then, and for our entire crew, I'm Corey Burkhart.
And I'm Madeline Green. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.